The sound of my wife's laughter cut through the silence of our marble-floored kitchen like a blade through silk. It was past midnight, and I'd come downstairs for a glass of water, but froze when I heard Taryn's voice drifting from her home office. "You're completely helpless in bed, Griffin. I swear the girls said I should just dump you and find someone who actually knows what they're doing." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My hand tightened around the crystal tumbler I'd grabbed instead of the water glass. Through the crack in her office door, I could see her lounging in her designer chair, laptop open, clearly on a video call with her PR firm girlfriends. Her perfectly manicured fingers gestured dramatically as she continued her performance. Honestly, it's like being married to a golden retriever. Sweet, loyal, but absolutely clueless when it comes to satisfying a woman. More laughter erupted from her laptop speakers. I recognized Renee's distinctive cackle among the chorus. I should have walked away. Should have gone back upstairs to our king-size bed with its Egyptian cotton sheets and pretended I'd never heard those words. Instead, I poured 3 fingers of bourbon and settled into the shadows of the hallway, listening to my wife of 15 years systematically destroy what was left of my dignity. "The worst part is how proud he looks afterward," Taryn continued, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Like he's just conquered Everest or something. I have to fake it every single time, and he's so oblivious he actually believes I'm satisfied. My name is Griffin Hayes. I'm 41 years old, a senior investment banker at Morrison & Associates, and until 5 minutes ago, I thought I had a pretty good marriage. Sure, Taryn and I had our rough patches, but doesn't everyone after 15 years? I work 60-hour weeks to maintain our lifestyle in Millbrook Heights, one of those suburban enclaves where the lawns are always perfect and the secrets are buried deep beneath the manicured surface. I'd always known Taryn was ambitious. Hell, it was one of the things that attracted me to her when we met at a charity gala back in 2008. She was building her PR empire from scratch, all sharp suits and sharper wit. I respected her drive, even when it meant late nights and weekend work calls. I thought we were a team. Apparently, I was wrong. "The thing is," Taryn was saying now, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "I've been thinking about making some changes. You know Eliot Voss, my new business partner? He's everything Griffin isn't. Confident, successful, and God, the way he looks at me." The smooth-talking consultant she'd brought into her firm 6 months ago. The one who drove a Tesla and wore suits that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. The one who'd been finding excuses to stop by our house for business meetings that seemed to involve a lot of wine and laughter. "Are you sleeping with him?" Renee's voice came through the speakers, breathless with excitement. Taryn's pause told me everything I needed to know. "Let's just say I'm finally remembering what it feels like to be with a real man," she said finally. The crystal tumbler slipped from my numb fingers, shattering against the marble floor. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot. Taryn's voice cut off abruptly. I heard her chair creak, footsteps approaching the office door. I was already moving, taking the stairs 2 at a time, my bare feet silent on the carpet runner. By the time she called out, "Griffin, is everything okay?" I was already in bed, eyes closed, breathing steady, playing the role of the oblivious husband one last time. She slipped into bed 20 minutes later, her body carefully positioned on her side of our California king, miles away from me in every sense that mattered. I lay there in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Taryn thought she was married to a golden retriever. Sweet, loyal, and stupid. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The next morning dawned gray and cold, matching my mood perfectly. I went through my usual routine, shower, shave, coffee, and the Wall Street Journal, while Taryn fluttered around the kitchen in her silk robe, chattering about her day as if she hadn't spent the previous night discussing my inadequacies with her friends. "Don't forget we have dinner with the Hendersons tonight," she said, not looking up from her phone as she scrolled through what I now realized were probably messages from Eliot. "Claire specifically requested that little Italian place downtown." "Of course," I replied, my voice steady as I folded the newspaper. "Wouldn't want to disappoint Claire." The Hendersons were part of our social circle, successful, attractive couples who lived in houses just like ours and attended the same charity galas and country club events. Tom Henderson ran a law firm. His wife Claire managed an art gallery. We'd been having monthly dinners together for 3 years. I wondered if they knew about Eliot, if they'd been laughing about my supposed failures behind my back too. At the office, I found it impossible to concentrate on the Morrison portfolio I was supposed to be reviewing. Instead, I kept thinking about Taryn's words, the casual cruelty in her voice as she'd described our intimate life to her friends, the way she'd talked about Eliot like he was some kind of prize she'd won. Around noon, my assistant knocked on my door. "Mr. Hayes, your wife called. She wanted to remind you about dinner tonight and asked if you could pick up wine on the way home." "Of course she did," I muttered, then looked up at Jennifer's concerned face. "Sorry. Just a long morning. Yes, tell her I'll grab something appropriate." But as I sat there, a different kind of plan began forming in my mind. If Taryn wanted to perform for an audience, I could give her exactly what she was asking for. I left work early and stopped at the wine shop, selecting a bottle of the Barolo that Tom Henderson particularly enjoyed. Then I made another stop, at the electronics store, where I purchased a small digital recorder, the kind journalists use for interviews. Perfectly legal, according to the salesman, as long as I wasn't recording private conversations without consent. Good thing tonight's dinner would be anything but private. At home, I found Taryn in our walk-in closet, trying on different outfits. She'd settled on a black dress that hugged her curves in all the right places, the same dress she'd worn to her company Christmas party, where she'd first introduced me to Eliot. "You look beautiful," I said, and meant it. Even knowing what I knew, I could still appreciate the woman who'd once made my heart skip beats. She glanced at me in the mirror, surprise flickering across her features. "Thank you. You're in a good mood tonight." "Why wouldn't I be? Dinner with friends, beautiful wife, good wine." I held up the bottle. "Tom's favorite." Her smile seemed genuine for the first time in months. "You remembered?" "I remember everything, Taryn. Everything." We arrived at Rossini's at 7 sharp. The Hendersons were already seated at our usual corner table, Tom rising to shake my hand while Claire air-kissed Taryn's cheeks. The conversation flowed easily at first. Work, vacation plans, the latest neighborhood gossip. It was during the second course that Taryn began her performance. "Poor Griffin," she said with a laugh that sounded affectionate to anyone who hadn't heard her real opinion the night before. "He's been so stressed with work lately. Haven't you, honey?" "Have I?" I asked, taking a sip of wine. "Oh, yes. You know how men get when they're feeling inadequate?" Her eyes sparkled with malice disguised as concern. "It affects everything. Their confidence, their performance." Tom and Claire exchanged glances. I could see them trying to figure out where this was going. "Performance?" Tom asked carefully. Taryn leaned forward conspiratorially. "Well, I probably shouldn't say this, but Griffin's been having some bedroom issues lately. You know how it is? Men his age, all that pressure at work. Sometimes they just can't rise to the occasion." The silence that followed was deafening. Claire's face had gone red. Tom was staring into his wine glass, and I felt the familiar burn of humiliation that Taryn seemed to enjoy causing. But this time, instead of shrinking away, I smiled. "You're absolutely right, darling," I said, my voice carrying clearly across our corner of the restaurant. "I have been having performance issues, but not the kind you're thinking of." Taryn's eyes narrowed slightly, sensing danger. "You see," I continued, addressing Tom and Claire directly, "I've been performing the role of the oblivious husband for months now, pretending I don't know about the late-night video calls where my wife discusses our private life with her friends, pretending I don't notice the way she lights up when her business partner Eliot texts her, pretending I believe her when she says she's working late at the office." The color drained from Taryn's face. "Griffin," she said quietly, "what are you doing?" "I'm done performing," I replied. "Tom, Claire, I apologize for making you uncomfortable, but I thought you should know that my wife has been using our marriage as entertainment for her friends. Last night, she told them I was completely helpless in bed and that she has to fake satisfaction every time we're together." Claire's hand flew to her mouth. Tom looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. She also mentioned that she's been comparing me to her business partner, Eliot Voss. Apparently, he's everything I'm not. I'm sure you can imagine what that means. "Stop," Taryn hissed, her mask finally slipping. "Just stop." "Why?" I asked, my voice still perfectly calm. "Isn't this what you wanted? An audience for your grievances about our marriage?" I stood up, pulling out my wallet and leaving enough cash to cover our meal and a generous tip. "Tom, Claire, thank you for your friendship over the years. I'm sorry you had to witness this, but I thought you deserved to know the truth about the woman you've been socializing with." I looked down at Taryn, who was sitting frozen in her chair, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "Feel free to call Eliot for a ride home. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to comfort you." And with that, I walked out of the restaurant, leaving my wife to face the consequences of her cruelty alone. The fallout from dinner began immediately. By the time I got home, my phone was buzzing with texts from Taryn, ranging from furious to pleading to threatening. I ignored them all and poured myself a bourbon, settling into my home office to do some research. If Taryn wanted to play games, I needed to understand the rules. I started with Eliot Voss. A few strategic searches revealed more than I'd expected. The man had a pattern. He'd been involved with at least 2 other married women in the past 5 years, both clients of consulting firms he'd worked for. One divorce had been particularly messy, with accusations of financial impropriety. Interesting. Taryn stumbled through the front door around 11, clearly having stopped at a bar after leaving the restaurant. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled, and she reeked of wine and desperation. "How could you do that to me?" she slurred, swaying in the doorway of my office. "How could you humiliate me like that in front of our friends?" I looked up from my laptop, my expression neutral. I learned from the best. "This is different. That was private." "Private?" I laughed, the sound bitter even to my own ears. "You broadcast our intimate life to your entire social circle, but somehow my response is crossing a line?" She stumbled forward, gripping the edge of my desk for support. "You don't understand. This could ruin me, my reputation, my business. Now you're starting to get it." The next few days passed in a cold war of silence. Taryn left early and came home late, clearly avoiding me, but I could see the cracks forming. Claire Henderson had apparently wasted no time spreading the story through their social network. The invitations that usually filled our calendar began drying up. Taryn's lunch dates were mysteriously canceled. On Thursday, I decided to visit my old boxing gym downtown. I'd been a regular there for years before marriage and mortgages had consumed my free time. The owner, Mickey Torino, was a 70-year-old former Golden Gloves champion who still moved like a man half his age. "Griffin Hayes," he said when I walked through the door. "Thought you'd forgotten about us little people." "Never, Mickey. Just got caught up in the suburban dream." "How's that working out for you?" I smiled grimly and started wrapping my hands. "About as well as you'd expect." I was halfway through my workout when Eliot Voss walked in. He was wearing expensive athletic wear and moved with the kind of confidence that came from never having been punched in the face. He spotted me immediately and swaggered over. "Griffin, right? Taryn's husband?" I straightened up from the heavy bag, sweat dripping down my face. "That's right. And you're Eliot, Taryn's business partner?" His smile was predatory. "Among other things." The gym went quiet around us. Mickey appeared at my shoulder, his weathered face neutral, but his eyes alert. "Something you want to say to me, Eliot?" "Just that you should probably start looking for a good divorce lawyer," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Taryn's tired of playing house with someone who can't keep up with her needs." "Is that what she told you?" "She didn't need to tell me anything. Some things are obvious." I nodded thoughtfully, then smiled. "You know what else is obvious?" "What's that?" "That you've never been in a real fight in your life." His face flushed red. "You threatening me?" "Not at all, just making an observation." I picked up my gym bag and started walking toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Eliot? You might want to ask Taryn about Sandra Morrison and Jennifer Lake. I'm sure she'll explain how your business partnerships usually end." The look of confusion on his face told me he had no idea what I was talking about, which meant Taryn hadn't told him about my research into his romantic history. How interesting. That evening, I was working late in my office when Taryn burst through the door, her face flushed with anger. "What did you say to Eliot?" "We had a pleasant conversation at the gym." "Why?" "He's asking questions about my past relationships, about whether I've been honest with him about our marriage." I leaned back in my chair. "And have you been honest with him?" "That's not the point, isn't it? I mean, if you're planning to build a future with someone, honesty seems pretty important." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to figure out my angle. "What do you want, Griffin?" "I want you to understand something," I said, my voice calm. "You thought you could humiliate me, mock me to your friends, and parade your affair in front of me without consequences. You were wrong. So what? You're going to try to turn Eliot against me?" "I don't need to turn him against you, Taryn. You'll do that all by yourself." She opened her mouth to respond, but her phone buzzed with a text. I watched her face go pale as she read it. "Problem?" I asked. She looked up at me, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I saw real fear in her eyes. "Eliot wants to meet tomorrow. He says we need to talk." "Well," I said, turning back to my computer, "I'm sure you'll figure out what to say. You always do." Friday morning brought unexpected visitors. I was having coffee on our back patio when the doorbell rang. Through the front window, I could see Tom and Claire Henderson standing on our doorstep, both looking uncomfortable but determined. Taryn was still upstairs, probably preparing for her confrontation with Eliot, so I answered the door myself. "Tom, Claire, this is a surprise." "Griffin," Tom said, his usual easy smile replaced by something more serious. "We were hoping we could talk." I led them to the living room, offering coffee that they both declined. Claire sat on the edge of the sofa, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "We owe you an apology," she said without preamble. "I'm sorry?" Tom cleared his throat. "We knew, Griffin. Maybe not the details, but we knew something was going on with Taryn and that Eliot character." The admission hit me like a physical blow. "You knew?" "We suspected," Claire corrected quickly. "The way she talked about him, the way she'd light up when his name came up, and at the Mitchells' anniversary party last month." "What happened at the Mitchells' party?" Tom and Claire exchanged glances. "We saw them together," Tom said finally. "In the garden. It was intimate." I sat back in my chair, processing this information. "And you didn't think to mention it?" "We didn't know what to do," Claire said, tears forming in her eyes. "It wasn't really our business, and we weren't completely sure what we'd seen. But after Tuesday night," Tom continued, "after what she said to you in public, we realized we should have said something sooner. We should have been better friends." I stared at them for a long moment, then started laughing. Not the bitter laugh I'd been carrying around for days, but something closer to genuine amusement. "You know what the funny thing is?" I said. "I'm not even angry about that. If anything, I'm grateful." "Grateful?" Claire looked confused. "You've just confirmed that I'm not crazy. That what I saw, what I suspected, was real." I leaned forward. "Do you know how liberating that is?" Tom nodded slowly. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to give my wife exactly what she's been asking for." Before they could ask what I meant, we heard Taryn's heels clicking down the stairs. She appeared in the living room doorway, dressed in a sharp business suit and looking like she was heading into battle. "Tom, Claire," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "I didn't realize you were here." "We were just leaving," Claire said, standing quickly. Tom rose as well, but paused to look at Taryn. "For what it's worth, Taryn, I think you're making a mistake." Her mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the uncertainty beneath. "I don't know what Griffin's told you, but—" "He didn't have to tell us anything," Claire interrupted. "We have eyes." After they left, Taryn turned to me, her composure cracking. "What did you say to them?" "Nothing they didn't already know." She stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" I called after her. "To clean up the mess you've made." The door slammed behind her, rattling the windows. I spent the morning making phone calls. First to my lawyer, David Chen, who'd handled our real estate transactions over the years. Then to my accountant, then to my bank. By lunch, I had a clear picture of our financial situation and my options going forward. I was reviewing the papers David had emailed me when my daughter Sammy called from college. "Dad, what the hell is going on? Mom just called me crying about some fight you guys had." Sammy was 18, a freshman at Northwestern studying journalism. She'd inherited Taryn's sharp intelligence, but thankfully seemed to have gotten my sense of empathy as well. "Your mother and I are having some problems," I said carefully. "She said you humiliated her in front of your friends, that you were trying to ruin her business." I closed my eyes. Of course, Taryn would get to Sammy first, spin the story to make herself the victim. "Sammy, has your mother told you about Eliot Voss?" A pause. "Her business partner?" "Yeah, she mentions him sometimes." "Why? What has she said about him?" "Just that he's helping her expand the firm, that he's really smart and ambitious." Another pause. "Dad, you're scaring me. What's really going on?" I had to make a choice. I could protect Sammy from the ugly truth, let her maintain her illusions about her mother, or I could trust her with the reality of our situation. "Your mother is having an affair, Sammy, with Eliot, and she's been telling her friends that I'm inadequate as a husband." The silence stretched so long, I thought the call had dropped. "Sammy? I'm here." Her voice was small, young. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." "Oh, Dad, I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault, sweetheart. And it's not really about you. This is between your mother and me." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to make sure she understands that actions have consequences." That afternoon, I drove to Taryn's office building downtown. Her PR firm occupied the entire 15th floor of a gleaming glass tower, all modern furniture and motivational posters about synergy and disruption. The receptionist, a young woman with purple hair and multiple piercings, looked up when I approached her desk. "I'm here to see my wife," I said. "Taryn Hayes?" "Oh, Mr. Hayes. She's in a meeting right now, but I can—" "With Eliot Voss?" Her expression shifted slightly. Yes. They've been in the conference room for about an hour. I'll wait." I settled into one of the uncomfortable modern chairs in the waiting area and pulled out my phone. After a few minutes, I could hear raised voices coming from down the hallway. Eliot's voice, then Taryn's, both clearly agitated. The purple-haired receptionist kept glancing nervously toward the conference room, then at me. "Is everything okay?" I asked her. "Oh, yes, sir. Just a intense business discussion." 20 minutes later, the conference room door flew open and Eliot stormed out, his face flushed with anger. He spotted me in the waiting area and stopped. "You," he said, pointing an accusatory finger in my direction. "Me," I agreed, standing up. "This is all your fault." "What is?" "You know what." I looked past him to where Taryn had appeared in the conference room doorway. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled, and she looked like she'd been crying. "Actually, I don't," I said to Eliot. "Why don't you enlighten me?" "You poisoned her against me, filled her head with lies about my past relationships. I didn't tell her anything she couldn't have found out herself with a simple Google search." His face went even redder. "Those women were unstable. What happened with them had nothing to do with Taryn and me." "What women?" Taryn asked from the doorway, her voice sharp. Eliot spun around to face her. "It's not what you think." "Then explain it to me." The receptionist was watching this exchange like it was her favorite soap opera. I almost felt bad for the entertainment we were providing. "Sandra Morrison and Jennifer Lake," I said helpfully. "Both married women, both clients of firms where Eliot worked. Both ended up divorced after their affairs with him came to light." Taryn's face went white. "Is that true?" "It's complicated," Eliot said. "How is it complicated?" "They pursued me. I was trying to be professional, but they were relentless." "Like I was?" Taryn's voice was quiet. "That's not what I meant." "But it's what you said." I decided this was a good time to make my exit. "Well, this has been enlightening, but I should probably head home." "Griffin, wait!" Taryn called after me. I paused at the elevator, looking back at my wife standing in the hallway of her professional domain, her personal life crumbling around her. "Yes?" "We need to talk." "Do we? Because it seems like you and Eliot have plenty to discuss first." The elevator doors opened and I stepped inside, leaving them to sort out their mess. The country club's annual charity gala was always the social event of the season in Millbrook Heights. 500 of the area's most successful and influential people gathered in the ballroom to write checks, network, and see who was sleeping with whom. This year's theme was Masquerade, which seemed particularly appropriate given the circumstances. I hadn't planned to attend. After the events of the past week, the last thing I wanted was to spend an evening making small talk with people who'd been gossiping about my marriage. But Taryn had surprised me by asking, no, begging me to go with her. "Please, Griffin," she'd said Thursday evening, standing in the doorway of my office like a supplicant. "I know I've made mistakes, but if we don't show up together, everyone will know our marriage is over. Isn't it? I don't know. Maybe we can still fix this." I'd studied her face, looking for signs of genuine remorse or just damage control. What I saw was a woman who'd finally realized the cost of her choices. "What about Eliot?" "That's over. It was a mistake. A stupid, selfish mistake." "Because he turned out to be a serial cheater, or because you got caught?" She flinched. "Because I realized what I was throwing away." So here we were, Saturday evening, dressed in formal wear and hiding behind decorative masks like the metaphorical ones we'd been wearing for months. Taryn looked stunning in a midnight blue gown that hugged her curves, her mask a delicate creation of silver and sapphires. I'd chosen a simple black mask to match my tuxedo. The ballroom was decorated like something out of a fairy tale, all twinkling lights and flowing fabric. A string quartet played in one corner while servers circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. It should have been magical. Instead, it felt like a funeral. We made it through the cocktail hour with minimal damage. A few pointed looks, some whispered conversations that stopped when we approached, but nothing overt. Taryn stayed close to my side, playing the role of the devoted wife with Academy Award-worthy conviction. It was during dinner that things began to unravel. We were seated at a table with 3 other couples, all part of our extended social circle. The conversation was carefully neutral at first. Work, vacation plans, the unseasonably warm weather. But I could see the curiosity in their eyes, the way they watched Taryn and me for signs of discord. "Taryn," said Monica Walsh, the wife of a prominent surgeon, "I haven't seen much of you at the club lately. How's the business going?" "Very well," Taryn replied smoothly. "We're expanding into new markets." "And how is your business partner working out? Eliot, isn't it?" The question hung in the air like a blade. I could feel Taryn tense beside me. "Actually," I said, setting down my wineglass, "Eliot is no longer with the firm. Apparently he had some issues with professional boundaries." Monica's eyes widened with interest. Oh my, that sounds serious. It was, I continued, my voice conversational. Seems he had a pattern of getting involved with married clients. Very unprofessional. Griffin, Taryn said quietly, please don't. Don't what? Tell the truth? The entire table was watching us now, their masks unable to hide their fascination with the drama unfolding before them. The truth is, I said, standing up and addressing not just our table, but the surrounding tables as well, my wife has been having an affair with her business partner. She's also been entertaining her friends by sharing intimate details about our marriage, including her opinion that I'm inadequate. Gasps echoed around the ballroom. Conversation stopped mid-sentence as people turned to stare at us. But here's what she didn't tell her friends, I continued, my voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence. She didn't tell them that her lover has a history of seducing married women and destroying their lives. She didn't tell them that he dropped her the moment his pattern was exposed, and Shay certainly didn't tell them that she's here tonight begging me to save her reputation because no one else will have her. Stop, Taryn whispered, tears streaming down her face behind her mask. Why? Isn't this what you wanted? Public attention? An audience for your performance? I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small digital recorder, placing it on the table. For those who think I might be exaggerating, I have a recording of my wife's video call with her friends, where she describes me as completely helpless in bed and compares me unfavorably to her lover. The silence in the ballroom was deafening. 500 of the most powerful people in our community were watching my wife's public humiliation with rapt attention. Taryn stood up abruptly, her chair falling backward with a crash. You bastard, she hissed. You planned this. You brought me here just to destroy me. I brought you here because you asked me to, I replied calmly. But you're right about one thing. I did plan this. I picked up the recorder and pressed play. Taryn's voice filled the ballroom, crystal clear and unmistakably cruel. You're completely helpless in bed, Griffin. I swear the girls said I should just dump you and find someone who actually knows what they're doing. The sound of her laughter, so casual and heartless, echoed off the ballroom's vaulted ceiling. Honestly, it's like being married to a golden retriever. Sweet, loyal, but absolutely clueless when it comes to satisfying a woman. I stopped the recording and looked around the room at the shocked faces of our friends and neighbors. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, I give you my wife, Taryn Hayes, master of public relations and private humiliation. Taryn was sobbing now, her carefully applied makeup running down her cheeks in dark streams. Please, she whispered, please stop. Like you stopped when I begged you not to discuss our private life with your friends, like you stopped when I asked you to show me some basic respect in our marriage. I walked around the table to where she stood, removing my mask so she could see my face clearly. You wanted to know what it felt like to be with a real man, Taryn. Well, a real man doesn't let himself be humiliated and mocked by someone who promised to love and honor him. A real man fights back. I turned to address the crowd one final time. My wife thought she could destroy my dignity and reputation without consequences. She was wrong. Tonight she gets to experience exactly what she put me through. Public humiliation, loss of respect, and the knowledge that everyone she cares about now knows exactly who she really is. I started walking toward the exit, then paused and looked back. Oh, and Taryn? Don't bother coming home tonight. I've changed the locks, and your belongings are in storage. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce proceedings. The ballroom erupted in shocked whispers and gasps as I walked out, leaving my wife to face the consequences of her choices alone. Outside, the cool night air felt like freedom. I pulled out my phone and called Mickey from the boxing gym. Mickey, it's Griffin. You still keep that bottle of good whiskey in your office? Sure do. Why? I'll be right over. Tonight we celebrate. What are we celebrating? I looked back at the country club, where the woman who'd promised to love and cherish me was probably still standing in the ruins of her reputation, finally understanding the price of cruelty. Justice, I said. We're celebrating justice. As I drove away from the club, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Taryn had taught me that when you play with fire, you shouldn't be surprised when you burn the whole house down. Tonight, I'd return the favor.